Hello, everybody. So, welcome to the second talk in the virtual Samvad series. Today, we have with us Professor Meenakshi D'Souza, who is going to give a talk on verifying band convergence for sampled control systems. We all know Professor Meenakshi. She is an associate professor at IIIT Bangalore, and she's also a member of ACM India Council. Her research interests are in validation and verification of software systems. She has a lot of interest in theoretical computer science. She has been with us since 2010, and she has played several roles in the institute in both administrative, teaching, research, all of the different aspects. She leads the software engineering lab along with Professor Sujit Kumar Chakrabarti. And this particular talk has already been presented at the NASA Formal Methods Symposium 2020. So I here welcome Meenakshi to take the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Jaya, for the nice introduction. This is a talk on our most recent paper, which was presented virtually at the NASA Formal Methods Conference. It would have been nice to go there because it was held at NASA in California, but unfortunately we couldn't go there. But the virtual conference was good enough. This is the work that I did without a PhD student. I should stress on that because this particular funded project didn't fund a PhD student. So this is joint work with a PhD student from IISc, Ezzuddin, who's the first author in the paper, along with Zahra and Pavitra from Kansas State and Deepak from IISc. It's on verifying band convergence properties of sample control systems. Even though it's a paper talk, I'll try to make it as accessible as possible. Feel free to drop in your questions as and when I talk if you need additional clarifications. So just a brief on our software engineering lab. You can find more information there. Sujit and I run this lab. Currently, just with me, we have, there are 5 PhD scholars and 1 MS-BY research student. I have been exclusively working on testing and formal verification as it's applied to embedded software for the past few years. We've graduated 2 PhD students and 3 MS students in this area. Currently, along with 1 new PhD student, I've started looking at web services and formal verification of web services. But otherwise, formal methods for embedded software has been my area. So these are the embedded software areas that we've been working with: industrial robots, avionics, IoT, RTOS, PLC controllers. So I more than welcome any opportunities for collaboration in these areas, especially in testing, verification, and architecture. So before I talk, this talk is broadly about controllers for embedded software. Controllers for embedded software are software-driven controllers. And their main functionality is to be able to provide control of an appropriate system. We usually call such systems as plants. Like a classical example could be the cruise control system in a car. Usually we call it X-by-wire, drive-by-wire, brake-by-wire, and so on. So the car becomes the plant. Usually you have a human being driving the car, but let's say you have a cruise control system which tries to drive the car on its own. Then the car becomes the plant, and the cruise control system, which is eventually a piece of C code, is what we call a controller. Another simple example could be, let's say, lifts in a large apartment complex. So the lift becomes the plant, and the software that controls the lift based on the choice of buttons and make sure that the lift goes to the right floor, stops at the right places, is what we call a software-driven controller. You can go on giving examples of such controllers. There are plenty of them. All of them are examples of embedded systems. And the other nice thing about them is that almost all of them are safety critical in nature. This is one term that every formal methods person is very fond of, because whenever it's safety critical, its failure cannot be accepted. And we independently know that testing cannot guarantee 100% correctness. So formal methods is one of the ways to resolve this conflict. So lots of systems have formal methods. There's a large class of people who work on control theory and formal methods who've been looking at such software-driven controllers, and this talk is about that. So usually software engineers or formal methods people come much later in the picture. There are control engineers who are extremely familiar with the domain, be it automotive, be it robotics. They have a lot of knowledge in that system, and using their engineering principles and domain knowledge, they design the controllers. There are several standard control theory laws. I've just listed some of them here. Feedback control. There is another kind of control called PID control, which I'll talk a little more about in this talk. Hybrid control. And these days, neural networks are explored as possible options for replacing controllers, but of course with varying degrees of accuracy and safety. So usually control engineers belonging to a specific domain work on these control laws, and they bring them to a certain stage where they understand the dynamics of the plant and the controller combined. And that's the point when software engineers or electronics engineers who can code take over. So we try to implement, software engineers try to implement these control laws using usually the popular language used is C or Ada. We don't really use object-oriented languages like Java or anything like that. So we implement it in software, so the controller becomes a discrete entity because it's a piece of software. Whereas the plant has a lot of physics, so it stays as a continuous entity. So this brings in a lot of complexity in terms of the kind of maths that you have to handle in terms of modeling these controllers. So I'll also spend a few minutes talking about what are the typical properties that are being verified when it comes to such controllers. Typically, I mean, there are several different properties, but the broad class of properties that formal methods people are interested can be categorized as given in the slides. So what we call first class of properties is what we call rise time properties, in the sense that let's take the example of this cruise control system in a car. So the driver decided to take a break, or even a pilot in a plane decides to take a break, and he switches on this drive-by-wire system or the autopilot system. So the system needs anywhere from a few milliseconds to a few seconds to achieve the desired speed with the desired distance and the desired control algorithms. So that time that we give the system is what we call a rise time. So rise time is an initial fragment of time given for the system to reach the desired state. But it could be far away from the desired state to start with. So we account for a large class of errors till the rise time is over. And after the rise time, the system settles down, in the sense that the controller settles down, and then that fragment we call the settling time, in the sense that the controller is fully active, running, and it is controlling the plant. It is driving the car, it's driving the plane. So at this point, our threshold for tolerance in errors becomes very less. I have put a generous fragment of 2%. It's usually less than that. So, and then we also have things like what we call bounded liveness property. So let's say if an event X happens now, then the system, the control system will respond with another event Y within K units of time. So typically all these units of time are hard real-time units along the lines of milliseconds or microseconds. And it's important to be able to verify them, to be able to ensure that the controller is fully correct. One big challenge when it comes to verifying them is that even though controllers are discrete, the plant plus the controller model is what we call a nonlinear system, because basically the control laws, the physical laws of the system make it nonlinear. So you can have a whole class of, let's say, differential equations which give the dynamics of the system. All of them are higher order derivatives. They are not linear systems, and verification, even simple question like can I reach a particular state is a undecidable problem. In fact, it's a highly undecidable problem. There's a hierarchy of undecidable problem, and it is not in the lowest known hierarchy. So this brings in a lot of challenge. So one obvious answer is that a lot of control systems have been running till now. So how do they run? How are they correct? So people use extensive testing and simulation. MathWorks, who was the industrial sponsor for this project, they have tools like Simulink and Stateflow. And the control engineers who work with these tools design their control systems, implement the control laws using discretization, and resort to simulations to be able to verify these requirements. One important property is to be noted about simulation is that, yeah, Sachit, please ask a question.
Hi, Meenakshi. The thing that I didn't understand was what do you mean by undecidability? Because we have very strong rules on controllability and reachability and so on from a mathematical point of view. So is this something like we can say that we can take a dynamic system from any one state to any other state if the dynamics satisfy all these properties? Maybe it's a different definition that I'm not.
No, by undecidable, I mean that there is no algorithm that will take every kind of control system and answer these, whether these properties are true or not automatically. I cannot design an algorithm to do that. That's what I mean by undecidable. Instead, I can give a mathematical proof about the absence of an algorithm that will terminate always.
Maybe I have to read about this, because for us it's a given. I mean, like if some matrix has some specific properties, then we are okay. We can take it from any state to any other state. If you're designing, for instance, a PID or a state feedback controller.
Yeah, but what I mean is from an initial state, can you reach a desired state? Can you give a proof or a guarantee that under certain conditions, I am guaranteed to reach a desired state and stay there for a certain amount of time?
Yes.
Can an algorithm do this automatically without a human interfering with a pen and paper calculation? Can an algorithm do this automatically? The answer is no for non-linear systems, and then we say that the problem is undecidable.
Okay, this is something that maybe I have to read about. Okay, please carry on. Maybe we can discuss later. Thanks.
Okay. So coming back to my point about testing and simulation. So test engineers very effectively verify rise time properties, bounded liveness properties. But settling time property is literally like, the controller lives happily ever after kind of thing. So as long as the controller is running, it should behave, it should be within a desired band, within a threshold of the desired state forever. So there is no boundedness to it. So testing and simulation cannot be used. So we would ideally like an automated mathematical proof to be able to desire these requirements. So here is an introduction to the problem that we are precisely looking at. So we are looking at what we call as linear systems that are dynamical in nature, that are controlled by PID controllers. I'll explain what a PID controller is at a high level in the next slide. So we would like to use program verification techniques. By program verification techniques, I mean verification techniques that have been used to verify software, like C programs or Java programs. We want to be able to apply them to be able to verify control systems. As Sachit said, probably control engineers know how to give a pen and paper proof of it, but our goal is to be able to use program verification, which is push button automatic, to verify control systems. So in our attempt to do that, we've built a small tool for verifying Simulink models for control systems that our industry partners have been using. So here are the examples of control systems that we've tried out on. It has worked on some, failed on some. So I'll give you a table at the end where it's worked on. So aircraft pitch control system, ball and beam, which is basically a balancing ball, cruise control, which is like an X-by-wire in a car, motor position, which controls valves and motors in any kind of valve pump system, motor speed, which controls the speed of motors, inverted pendulum, which is a classical physics example to illustrate a dynamical system. So we've tried it out on all these. So these are benchmark Simulink examples, which are standardly used in any kind of university education. So we've tried it out on all this, and I'll give you a table about how successful we've been in our experiments. So here is how a PID controller looks like. So on your right, you will find a plant. If you notice the box called plant. So what we mean by a plant, the T is for time, U is the input to the plant, X and X dot represent, X represents the state of the plant. All these are vectors, matrices, you can think of them as. X dot is the rate at which the state of plant varies with time. X naught is the initial state. So there is some kind of a linear differential equation that controls the dynamics of a plant. So we would like to hook up a controller to this plant and make sure that the plant behaves as desired. So if it's a car, it should be driven by the software controller as good as a human would drive it. If it's an autopilot, then the plane should be steered in such a way that it is as good as a human pilot doing it. So how do you do that? So we attach a controller to the plant. On the left, there is a controller. So the particular class of controllers that we look at are called PID controllers. P for proportional, I for integral, D for derivative. So what this controller does is it observes the current output from the plant. So the plant gives certain kinds of control outputs which control the actuators in the system. And it takes those outputs, so that's given by the vector Y, which is in turn dependent on the state of the plant. And then it has a history of previous outputs. So it looks at what is the desired output, which is Y star. Y star is the desired output. Like for example, if I have to do cruise control, I can say that the controller should drive the car at a steady speed of 30 kilometers per hour. So 30 kilometers per hour is my set speed. So that's my Y star. Let's say the current speed of the car could be 35 kilometers per hour. So it first computes the error. So that is E of t, which is basically just a proportional difference between desired output and current output. The next one is the integral component. And the third one is the derivative component. Between these two, one sums up the errors in the past and one looks into the possible errors of the future. So I'll put it at a high level that way. So classical PID controllers look at the current state, the difference in errors. They look into the past accumulated errors, and then they also estimate the future possible errors. So that is the proportional, integral, and derivative components. So once you have these controllers, using standard PID control design algorithms, there are control engineers are familiar with it. They design such a PID controller and then they can compute a controlled input U of t to be given to the plant. So the whole thing runs as a closed loop system. At every time instant, the controller reads the output of the plant, computes the error, computes the integral, the derivative, computes the control output, passes it back to the plant. It just keeps going on and on and on as long as the controller is hooked to the plant and is meant to be running. So typically A, B, and C are matrices that influence the behavior of the plant dynamics, including its output. Kp, Ki, and Kd that you see up are proportional, integral, and derivative constants, which are adjusted to get to your appropriate control laws. Y is the desired set point. X naught is the initial state of the system. So when it comes to requirements, so when we do a formal methods talk, we always talk about a system and a requirements. So in this slide, I told you about what our system is. It's a PID controller hooked to a plant, which works by sampling data. I'll come to that point. Now, what are our requirements? We concentrate on rise time and settling time requirements. So if you want to understand this graph, x-axis plots time in this graph and y-axis talks about where is my set point. So let's say my set point is that line which is marked along the y-axis beside the word set point. So when the controller starts at time 0, initially it could be far away from the desired output at the set point, but it has to achieve its desired output very quickly. And it can go little far away here and there, but sooner or later, by the time it reaches settling time, it should stay very close to the set point. So that's this red curve. The set point is the straight line. The red curve is the actual output computed by the controller along with the plant. And it says that initially the controller is allowed some leeway in terms of staying away from the set point, reaching the set point. But by the time settling time comes, as the term indicates, what it means is that it should stay close to the set point. It cannot move away so much. So in the tuple that you see on the top left, R is the rise time, S is the settling time. Small gamma and capital gamma specify how far you can be away from the set point. So here is a small example of a cruise controller which works for us. So it's a system of a car. It is basically Newton's law, which says force is mass into acceleration. That's what is this v dot is minus b by m into v plus 1 by m into u. Let me not explain the physics. The equation of the movements of the car are given there. We assume that car has a standard mass of 1000 kgs, and the b is the friction of contact of the wheels with the ground. We assume that the roads are not too bumpy. It's a reasonably straight road, so there's not too much friction. It's a constant. And then you can come up with a sample control system specification. On the top left, what you see SC is all the parameters. There's basically numbers. In general, they could be matrices. On the top right, you see the rise time and settling time properties. So basically what it says is that within 5 units of time, let's say if the car was supposed to go at a standard speed of 120, within 5 units of time, it should reach 120. After that, it can hover around for some time. And within 19 units of time, it should stay within a very small band and not deviate too much after that. So that's what we would like to verify. So this is a quick literature review, what has happened in the past. This is again purely formal methods testing kind of effort. So there is a popular temporal logic called signal temporal logic. Several people have looked at model checking, monitoring signal temporal logic specifications. You could do a classical model checking approach. This is where a lot of undecidability comes. Lyapunov is a Russian mathematician who studied stability, exclusively stability properties, and his theory has been very useful for formal methods people. That's the second summary. And sample data control systems have been verified by considering them as hybrid systems. By delta decision procedures also consider them as hybrid systems. And Sriram and others at Microsoft Research have also used certain kinds of dynamic logic to verify these systems. So there's a rich body of work. I mean, if you see from 2009, we've tried to cover till about 18, 19, there is active piece of work. Sorry, from 2001, there has been active piece of work in this kind of area. So the way we do is, so let me just go back a few slides. So we take the same controller, plant, control input and output.
You don't just go.
So what we do is that original plant has a lot of dynamics, right? X dot is AX of t plus B of U of t and all that. We let go all that. We basically abstract it out. We say that, so you can solve these matrices by considering them as some kind of exponentials. So that is that e power AC into h. So h is the time at which the controller samples the plant outputs every 2 milliseconds, 3 milliseconds, 4 milliseconds. So that is the sampling time h. And once you sample at these time intervals, you can approximate the dynamics of the plant by using an exponential computation of the differentiation. This is standard numerical analysis. So that's the first equation. So what we further do is we try to get rid of the e power AC h also by considering them as approximations of certain matrices. So that's the second part. So now we've gotten rid of the original plant, which was a dynamical system, and replace the plant with a whole set of matrices which compute certain approximations. So one technical point here is that the approximations have to be sound, in the sense that if I claim that a particular property is true with reference to the approximate system, it will be, it should be true in the original system. So this is what we mean by sound over approximation. So we computed sound over approximations, came up with an abstract plant. What this does is it basically gets rid of those x dot kind of differential equations and replaces that with a whole set of matrices. So that's the first abstraction that we did. And the next abstraction we did is, instead of trying to follow a fine curve of the controller, trying to get exact values and give up proofs about whether things are true or not, we said we'll abstract out of that also. We'll try to work over a band of values. So if you remember my original, for some reason I'm not able to go back. If you remember, my original desired values were in the red line, which is inside the green line now. I say I won't exactly bother about the red line. Instead, I'll look around a small interval around the red line, and that's this green colored band that I have. So I won't compute the exact output, but I might compute somewhere around the output. This is what we are interested in tracking. And now what we do is we say, okay, I'll compute this output to a certain extent. And this also turns out to be expensive to formally verify. So we partly give up on this. We say that after the settling time, we are happy with a box around this entire curve. So first I had a curve, then I had a small band that was reasonably close approximation of the curve. After some point, I give up on the band also. I say I'm happy with a box around the curve. What I have shown in this picture is in 2D, but in general, these are matrices. So the box is a box around the matrix of behaviors. So what we compute actually is what we call a box invariant, which helps us to prove that settling time properties indeed hold within a certain band. So we come up with a two-stage verification approach. So please remember, from the time the controller starts, I have rise time where the controller is allowed to behave erratically and settle down while reaching the set point. And after the controller settles down, that the settling time defines that the controller is not allowed to move too much off its mark. So what we try to do is till settling time, from the beginning of controller computation till settling time, we use symbolic execution based verification approach. And post settling time, till as long as the controller is active, we use this notion of box invariant to compute that compute an over approximation by which we say verification holds. So here are some results that we have. I'll try to explain the statement of this theorem. So what we first did was we got rid of the plant dynamics. We came up with matrices that over approximated the plant dynamics. So that's our abstract system S cap. And so we don't have the exact state X. Instead, we have these ZL, ZU, which are lower and upper bound on the exact state. So we say that the exact state stays somewhere between these states, ZL and ZU. And then what we basically phrased was these two conditions, C1 and C2, which guarantee that our approximations, the box that we compute, gives us a sound over approximation. So if C1 and C2 can be computed, and if conditions C1 and C2 hold, then the ZL, ZU, which is the lower and upper bound on the actual state vector, stays invariant for the control system after the settling time. So this was the theorem that we proved. This forms the crux of our algorithm. So how do you compute such a box invariant? How do you compute the ZL and ZU? So there is no point in holding on to this theorem and saying that I can do it. We usually look for effective methods, which means we look for algorithms that compute these box invariants. So two approaches were proposed. One was a purely symbolic approach, which relies on a constraint solver. The other one was a combination of numeric and symbolic approach, where we evaluate the matrices ourselves in the numeric and symbolic approach. In the first one, we rely on the solver to evaluate the matrix automatically. The solver will compute the invariant if such an invariant exists. It's not guaranteed to compute it always because the underlying problem is undecidable. But for a large class of systems, it manages to compute. So we've used this solver called Z3, which is an open source solver made available from Microsoft Research. Z3 has specific APIs to handle all kinds of matrix computations. So we use the Z3 solver for constraint solving. And parallelly, because solver is like a black box, we don't know whether it's able to exactly compute at all instances that exist. We try to write our own code, which uses normal C++ kind of code, which evaluates these over approximate matrices to the extent that we can, and see if it does better than the solver computed symbolic approach. And we use standard fixed point computation algorithms available on matrices to compute these box invariant. So what I've given below is the box invariant that was computed by the solver from Microsoft Research for the cruise control system, which was a linear system. So here is the code of the verification algorithm. So we directly are given the abstract system, the band convergence property, and we want to compute the adequate invariant and ensure that whenever this algorithm is able to compute it, the property, the band convergence property, is indeed true. So maybe I'll skip the pseudo code of this algorithm. There is nothing much to explain in this. So this is the architecture of the tool. The place to start is the top left. So I'm given an abstract system. I'm given this rise time, settling time, and by how much I'm allowed to be around the rise and settling time, which are the small and capital gamma. So we do one more level of abstraction. We generate our own abstract system, SCAP. We also generate certain approximate systems by which we consider matrix approximations for exponentials. We compute our equilibrium point. Then we give it to Z3 solver, and we do our own numeric and symbolic solver. IISc student Yezuddin implemented the numeric and symbolic solver. Then we consider whichever is the best of the two. So I've put max to indicate best. It's just not the absolute max. We compare the result and say whichever is the best of the two. And then you take that invariant, go back and verify your abstract system. You could successfully verify it. And as I told you, the problem is in general undecidable. So the verification can just time out. So that's the arrow that goes down to the bottom right. So either TO is timeout. So I've just reached a timeout, or my settling time or rise time could be violated. So I have managed to falsify the requirement. I have managed to successfully verify the requirement, or I've done nothing. My tool timed out because it was unable to verify. So that's what we do. Or the earlier itself, it could time out in the sense that I can't compute my invariant symbolically. I can't compute my invariant numerically. I just fail miserably. So for difficult systems, even these things can happen. But what we've been able to achieve is that using a combination of these approaches and our cleverly generated approximation, we've been able to push the set of benchmarks which have been automatically verified a little more than what is present in the state of the art. So here are experimental results. In the first column, we take all the standard benchmark Simulink examples available: cruise control system, DC direct current, motor speed, ball and beam, DC motor position, inverted pendulum, aircraft pitch. These are standard benchmark Simulink examples available. And then we generated our own fictitious 3-dimensional and 4-dimensional control systems. They don't correspond to any real-life control systems, but they have nice equations, some nice matrices, just to see how our systems perform. Cruise control is a classical example where everybody have been able to verify. So we also have been able to verify. We can, in fact, Z3 can do it automatically. So it finishes in about less than 7 seconds. And but DC motor speed is one example where we've been able to push the boundary of verification. And even in DC motor position and in aircraft pitch, we've at least been able to compute invariants, but verification sort of times out. Maybe if we have an access to a higher powered machine, we might be able to see if verification can be completed. So with the machine RAM that we ran, timeout was set to 600 seconds, and if it doesn't complete, we just give up. Ball and beam, it just reports an error. Inverted pendulum, we've not been able to achieve. And our own 3D example completed, 4D example, the symbolic execution Z3 couldn't do anything about it, but our numerical C++ handwritten solver was able to do it. So basically, in summary, what this table illustrates is that cruise control is one benchmark example which others have worked on. So we've been able to achieve faster verification when compared to others for cruise control. And we've been able to achieve verification for motor speed, which was not known earlier, and for our own fictitious 3D system. And we've been at least able to compute invariants for aircraft pitch and DC motor, which are heavy nonlinear systems, and in the past automatic program verification techniques for them were not known. So we've been able to push the threshold of our verification a little bit. But what is to be understood here is that the general theory says a lot of problems here are undecidable. So all that you can do is to do heuristics like what we've worked on. We have 2 heuristics, one based on a third-party constraint solver, black box, and the other is our own numerical coding plus a constraint solver to do the verification. So heuristics say that I can push it a little more, but the problem in general is still undecidable.
Meenakshi,
Yeah.
what is your interpretation of no box inverse exists for the inverted pendulum?
Z3 just gave up.
No, but what does it
Z3
mean?
is that our the approximation, the matrix approximation that we had come up with, that I had stated in my theorem, was not good enough to compute a box invariant for a system like inverted pendulum. To compute
But we know that we can control the inverted pendulum, even though you may be doing it at the unstable position. We have theories that show that you can do it.
Yeah, no, our goal was to compute certain kinds of box invariants that we can give to a black box solver, and that will tell you whether I can compute it or not. And if it computes, it can verify it or not. So we don't want to do it by hand, by using any of the control theory algorithms. We want to do it using a program verification approach. And no box invariant exists basically means that Z3 doesn't say that. It just means that we are unable to figure out.
Okay, because what is surprising here is that, see, cruise control, motor speed, and motor position, they're all what we call as stable linear systems.
Yeah.
Now, ball and beam, inverted pendulum are typically unstable systems. So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised that they don't, but I'm surprised the aircraft pitch worked. Because aircraft pitch is also an unstable.
No, but aircraft pitch worked to the extent of computing an invariant. It wasn't useful to, the next step didn't succeed. The invariant couldn't be used to complete verifying the property. It times out there.
So in a way,
So
for
TO
all
is
these
timeout.
unstable systems, you seem to have a uniform, they seem to be consistent in all the unstable nonlinear systems.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, this is the best that we could do, and it's better than the state of the art that I had pictured earlier. None of them anyway could prove any properties about these systems.
Okay.
There you'll have a lot more error, TO, I don't know kind of things. We have a few more numbers here and lesser errors, timeouts, and unknown kind of stuff.
Okay, I mean, again, this is like a bit very different for me, so I don't know how to.
Yeah, no, your conjecture is right. Maybe stability plays a key role in the box invariant working, and these systems are not stable, so I may not be able to compute a box invariant.
No,
So what we are computing is a very coarse over approximation of the actual behavior. So we say the whole thing can be bound by a certain kind of box, and it may not work if the system is very unstable.
And I don't know if you are actually taking into account the controller tuning in any of these cases.
No. We assume that the controller is tuned. Control engineers have all done all that, and they just give up the lookup tables, which has been implemented in software. We don't do that.
Okay. Yeah. Well, okay. Let me.
It's a working controller that has been passed by the control engineers and implemented in software by software engineers.
Okay. All right. I think
that's the one that we consider.
Questions.
Yeah, so I'm done. In summary, we've solved two important requirements involving rise time and settling time, which put together we call it band convergence because we work with the over approximate band. And we've used a combination of black box symbolic techniques, which rely on good solvers like the ones of Microsoft. And we've also used our own numerical verification approaches, which is basically a lot of C++ code that Yazzuddin wrote. We've been able to push the verification to certain nonlinear systems, which have been handled for the first time. And the classical linear systems like cruise control, which were solved earlier, we've been able to handle it. So we are not way off what is known from the theory. And we believe that this is another one of the attempts to use formal verification, program verification based approach to solve to verify classical properties of control systems. And I should end by thanking our sponsor, Royal Academy of Engineering, and our industrial sponsor, MATLAB in MathWorks, who gave us all these Simulink models and let us experiment with our C++ APIs on trying to compute over approximations and verifying their properties. Yeah, so I'll be happy to answer any further questions. And sorry if the talk was way too technical.
Yeah, so anybody who wants to ask questions can ask now. I have a question. So for
Yeah.
the benchmark that you use for the control systems, is there a set state in which you start your experiments?
Yeah. There is a given initial state. The benchmarks come with that.
Okay. So for each of these data sets, control systems that you have used, they have just one standard state at which you start.
Yes. Yeah. And as Sachit said, they're already tuned and all that. University of Michigan hosts these benchmark examples.
Okay.
And they are used by everyone.
I think
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jaya. Yeah.
Thank you.